tonight's refutation, I will be addressing the claims of my opponents that esports competitors are professional athletes. He attempted to support this claim by saying that esports competitors reach athletic features that rival those of traditional athletes, and 2, that esports athletes are professionals, and 3, that esports athletes are beginning to be treated more like professional athletes as well. My response to his first secondary claim would be that initiating with the definition of a sport. It must be an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. So, esports qualifies for all of this except for the physical exertion as part of this definition. My opponent mentions that esports athletes have a reaction time nearly matching those of fighter jet pilots. However, according to Chrome.com, listing the qualifications of fighter jet pilots, they are required to take a 5-hour, 380-question test, which quizzes the applicants on verbal analogies, math, instrument comprehension, aviation information, and general science. And even after passing this exam, they have to complete a 12-week training program. They have to take constant scheduled psychiatric evaluations, and they are placed in stressful situations thereafter. It does not end after a game, as where it would with esports competitions. Additionally, competitions exist outside of athletic fields. So there are competitions in games like professional chess, or even professional singing or talent competitions like on the shows like The Four or The Voice or America's Got Talent, etc. And to follow that, I would like to respond to a secondary claim as well, in which he claims that esports competitors are professionals. This begs the question of whether or not they are professional athletes, not whether they are professional in their field. My opponent states that in 2017 alone, the esports economy grew to 696 million, a year-on-year growth of 41.3%. This, yes, has doubled in 1 year, but in the year 2011 alone, the sports industry was worth 480 to 620 billion, and that's about 10 times worth the esports industry alone, and this has been growing. The economy has been growing each year as well, and this diagnostic has been split up in between fields of soccer, which is the most popular sport globally, and then following that would be the U.S. football sport at 13% of that contribution of that economy alone. And in response to his third claim, my opponent claims that only athletes are able to apply for P1 visas, which allow athletes or competing people to travel throughout the countries and states for the sake of their competition. But allowing esports competitors to access this P1 visa means that it is acceptable to allow P1 visas to competitors not only in athletic sports, but in fields that are, like I said, like professional chess players or in other competitions as well. Allowing esports competitors to have this visa as well recognizes them as internationally recognized and associates them with accomplishments that are known worldwide. In conclusion, although esports competitors have a large following, the industry itself is a new and growing industry, and it cannot yet be defined as an athletic sport, but as a competitive game. Thank you.
All right, well, I think you find the key issue here is the issue of defining what it is that constitutes an athletic activity. That a sport is a competition, that's fine. That competitive events might be covered by the P1 visas, that's fine. But does it constitute athletics? And that's where the dispute is really going to be about. And you've got a criteria that defines it as involving physical exertion. You tried to minimize the exertion on the first point by taking the advocate's example of fighter pilots and showing what kind of training they actually go through. And do we get anything comparable to that for the esports activities? There's not any discussion of that particular point. I guess that's the argument that you're making here, is that this is, just because they have a similar kind of ability doesn't necessarily mean that it is a physical ability. And you described the physical process that the jet fighter guys have to go through. I got to be careful, jet fighter pilots have to go through. And I thought that was pretty reasonable. The idea that there are lots of things that are competitive in nature and we can think of them as sports but not necessarily athletic activities, I think that's kind of the key element of your argument. And you got a couple of examples. You mentioned chess, you mentioned talent competitions. I think there are probably other things that poker playing or stuff like that would fit in the same category. Nobody thinks of people who do those sorts of things as being athletes, but they do think of them as being competitors, right? And I think one of the things that you might want to go after are some of the esports themselves. And let's talk about what the examples involve. The esports activities, how long do they play? How many calories do they burn an hour? What kinds of activities do they engage in? I'm sure that they've got to be very athletic when it comes to their thumb movement, but the rest of their body, I don't know. I think that would be one of those things that you could also look at and say, okay, well, let's look at an athlete who plays professional soccer versus one who's playing StarCraft professionally, and let's see, what the differences are when it comes to their physical exertion, that kind of thing. So you've got the right idea. I think you could just sell it a little bit more, and there's content there that would probably get you what you're looking for. But I thought you had reasonable contrast on those points. Okay, thank you all for your patience this evening. We'll finish up on Wednesday, so everybody else be ready on Wednesday. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Did you get my email about I left some documents in your mailbox?
Yes, I did see that. I haven't picked them up yet.
Okay.
I did see it. So I know that you sent stuff.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hello.
Hey.
Is there anything that I should pick up?
Well, I had stuff that I passed out, so I'm willing to give you. What kind of stuff do you had? Like I think it was a peer evaluation and the outline thing. Maybe not the outline thing, I'm not sure. Oh, yes, there it is. Let me check out peer evaluation. Did you find it? You got a name to put on there?
For this one?
Yeah, I thought that's what you were.
Sorry, his name, but I do have my rough draft comments with my.
They put everything together.
I have it with me.
Just fold it in half the long way. Nope, that's the short way. Don't need this. And you need this to go with that.
Evaluation. I think you both in the long way? Yeah. You put it all the way if you want. So this is supposed to be. Okay.
Hey, Professor, I missed last week for that competition, and I have my speech ready. I just didn't get an evaluation paper from you last week.
Okay. Well, hang on. All right. Your refutation is what you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Okay.